And I think throughout my academic life, it's like when I'm taking a test, I just have a knowing. And it supplements my studying habits, and it supplements my intellect and my knowledge and my understanding. So it works in harmony together in a holistic way. And so it becomes a sense where it's just something that is normal to me, similar to my sense of smell, my sense of touch, hearing, sight. This is just another sense that I've never lost or been told that I don't have it. So it's just pretty normal to me. And so now in the corporate world, the way that I use it is when I meet people for interviews, for example, I can sense the energy. I can sense truth, or I can sense hyperbole. Or maybe I'm having a presentation, I can sense the energy and pivot the conversation in a way that resonates more with people. And so this is how a pretty normal psychic would use precognition in his daily life.
Hello, my name is Zenka Caro. I'm founder of LightNet, and my passion and purpose is to make the impossible possible. I am here today with David Tran, who arrived to the United States as a Vietnamese refugee with his parents. They fled the country and the war with only the clothes on their back, and he has lived an absolutely extraordinary life. Graduating magna cum laude and working for a nonprofit now doing data analytics. And guess what? His purpose turned out to be. You know, he did something that a lot of the people in the Purpose Lab did. They asked for a sign, they asked for confirmation. Am I getting this right? He had an ability in precognition his whole life. And when he asked for a sign, he went to the Psychic Olympic Games, the Psi Games, which just started last year. And guess what happened? He won first place. I don't think you need a better confirmation than that. It is my great pleasure to introduce David this week on the podcast. Check it out.
I discovered that my purpose in this lifetime is really just to connect with community, share the knowledge that we have, and just amplify all the goodness and all the love that we have to share and offer. There was a turning point in my life where it dawned on me that this really is my purpose. About 5 years ago, I was deep in meditation. And I understand what it is now, but at the time I didn't. And it really felt like a very strong vibration at the base of my spine. And I felt it working its way up my spine. This immense energy, and exploded out of my head. And in this moment, I discovered myself within myself, like a tiny version of myself. And I'm looking at the ceiling of my brain, and it was a huge kaleidoscopic flower blooming. And at that moment, I got the message, the answer is in the breath. And I felt like I was taught a breath. And it was a slight gaze, just barely in front of my eyes. And through a relaxation and breath, I would pull myself ever so slightly forward. And again, and again, and again, till with each breath, I found myself out of my body and just floating around in a space that I've never been. And it came to a point in this journey where I felt the presence of a female energy. And at that moment, I felt my presence being scanned. And it was a weird vibration that went from top of the head to the tips of my toes. And I felt this resounding feeling of, you're worthy. And at that point, it was like a door had opened behind her and extended it into a long corridor and a hallway of sorts. And as I took the breath to enter, I was greeted by other beings, and it was a community of beings, almost like a tribunal of sorts. And this female entity communicated with me and said, "You must come out of hiding. You must find other people like yourself, and you must train and complete your ma'at." And at the time, I had no clue what the word ma'at meant. But I knew that this was an important message that I received and I must follow it. And as I left, the last message was just have trust. And so I did. And I went through this journey of seeking knowledge. And one thing led to the next until I came across a podcast with Hakeem Isler. And he's the creator of the Psi Games. And it was a calling from Hakeem where if you have psychic abilities, come out and show the world in our first ever Psychic Olympics. And I thought to myself, is this what I was meant to do? But I said, you know what? There's no harm in trying. I know personally, having been born with the memory of being born and past lives, that I have the gift for precognition. So I said, for sure, we're going to go and connect with that modality. And I tested really high across the board in 5 categories. I think it was a PK, remote viewing, mind sight, dowsing, and precog. And I only wanted to compete for precog, but I was invited to compete in 2 other categories. And I thought to myself, sure, why not? What do I have to lose? But I want to come into this event completely cold, completely uneducated about this realm and this community, completely unpracticed. And in some ways, I think I had practiced self-dowsing. That if I would win first place in any category, that without a shadow of a doubt, that this is the road that I must dedicate my entire life to. And so, closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and took a leap of faith, and competed. Long story short, I got first place in precognition and third place in PK, or psychokinesis. But I also knew that I wasn't going there to compete or win anything or prove anything, because of proof I've already known. But I knew that I was there to connect to a community and, per the instructions, find other people like myself. And I also knew that there would be someone there at the Psi Games who would understand what ma'at meant, or completing this ma'at. Obviously, I did a little bit of Googling, but it was unsure, and it's just a lot of noise out in the internet, and I wanted a direct personal communication or transcription. And so at the Psi Games, everybody that I'd met, I had asked them, what do you know about the ma'at, or a ma'at, or completing your ma'at? And time again, people were like, David, we don't know. So, I'm like, the universe will work its way to me. And so I just let the intention go. And after winning the Psi Games, I was invited to come and train with the Vibravision team out in Utah. Wonderful folks. And super stoked, and I came there. And the first day of class, it just felt like a void or a negative space around me. Other students or other people coming there did not want to sit around me for some reason. And so there were spaces available next to me. And then this guy comes in, and he slides right next to me because there are open seats. He came in late. His flight got delayed. And I recognized him immediately, and I knew that he was a head of security at the Psi Games. And I turned to him like, hey, weren't you at the Psi Games? He's like, yeah, Dave Coleman. And we hit it off right away and felt this instant bond. And that night we went out to dinner, and I shared with him my story. And he said, brother, I know exactly what ma'at is. Come to find out, Dave is deep in Egyptian mythology and lore and history. and was a wealth of knowledge. And he let me know that Ma'at is the feminine energy that is a protector of truth and justice. And so I believe now, piecing things together a year later and having gone deeper in this path and this journey, that completing my Ma'at is still unfolding, but it is about finding my truth and living that truth. I'm in a very analytical field, research, data, analytics, technology. I sit at the center of it all, so it's very linear thinking. And so that side of me says, here you are from point A, you're now at point B, and point C is out here, and it's a bit of a chasm. So the intellectual side, the analytical side of me, is the part of me that says, take a breath. Is this right? And then the spiritual side kicks in and it says, yes, it is. Now go and jump and fly. And so there are these two polar opposites of the same thing, and it's there at the same time. And it's a mix of a feeling. It's not just any one feeling, because I'd be lying to myself and I'm like, oh, I have all the confidence in the world, let's fly. There is that brief moment of a pause, a retrospective, and it feels like an arrest of life, and then you just gotta believe and go. Precognition to me is, at the core of it, just the sense of knowing. If someone were to ask me yesterday, David, what did you eat for lunch? I can recall. And if someone were to ask me, hey, who's your mother? I know who my mom is. And if she were standing in a lineup, I could pick her out. And then it's that sense of knowing where when it comes and hits you, you just know it as a knowing or a memory, a certainty for sure. As if, like, you know you're about to eat in an hour. You don't know where you're gonna eat. You don't know what you're gonna eat. You may not even know who you're gonna eat with, but you're very certain that you're gonna eat. And so precognition for me as it unfolds is sort of like a collapsing of reality, but knowing that there is an ultimate lane that I'm in, that I'm headed towards. Silly example, I work for a nonprofit. We are doing end of year reviews and I'm about to meet with the C-suite. And I get a phone call and they're like, here's the agenda for today. David, you're about to present at 11:30. We hang up and I had a knowing that's not right. Something is off and they're gonna want me there early. So I leave to the meeting early. And as I'm pulling into the driveway, I get a phone call. It's like, actually, David, you know what? They want you in earlier. How soon can you get here? And I say, well, funny enough, I'm pulling into the parking lot. Stuff like that. As a child, it has helped me. So in the 80s, the boat people were a big thing. My family were refugees fleeing Vietnam to come to the U.S. following the Vietnam War. And I recall a time where we were in a refugee camp. And, my mom would put me to sleep and she'd go off and do her thing. And I would wake up not seeing where mom is and having a sense of and knowing where she was. And I was just able to find her regardless of where she was at the camp. And as a child, I used to wander a lot and just was able to find my way home. And I think throughout my academic life, it's like when I'm taking a test, I just have a knowing. And it supplements my studying habits, and it supplements my intellect and my knowledge and my understanding. So it works in harmony together in a holistic way. And so it becomes a sense where it's just something that is normal to me, similar to my sense of smell, my sense of touch, hearing, sight. This is just another sense that I've never lost or been told that I don't have it. So it's just pretty normal to me. And so now in the corporate world, the way that I use it is when I meet people for interviews, for example, I can sense the energy. I can sense truth, or I can sense hyperbole. Or maybe I'm having a presentation, I can sense the energy and pivot the conversation in a way that resonates more with people. And so this is how a pretty normal psychic would use precognition in his daily life. The biggest struggle in living my purpose have been manyfold. Falling back on my analytical mind, I think of layers or segmentation. There's a hierarchy to everything. I think at the most basic level, there are times when you sense something and you just cannot do anything about it. And you just know that you must live through this knowing, whether it be good news or bad news. There are times when I've sensed that, for example, company layoffs. What can you really do, but you know it's coming. I've sensed that in prior workplaces, my time with this company is coming to an end, and I don't know how. But all I know that is that I must trust in the universe and let it unfold. And it shows up, and it's always been right. At the next level, I think the other echelon of challenges, we shall say, is just coming to grips internally, because sometimes there is a tuggle between the analytical mind and then the spiritual mind. And you oftentimes, for me at least taking one beat to think, am I actually analyzing a thing, overanalyzing a thing, or am I really tapping into my gift? And so, like a thing that is constantly there at the forefront and the back of my mind. And so I make it a practice to pause and think twice, but also at the same time, center myself to really feel. And then I think at the next echelon is, although friends and family may love you and they support everything that you do, for some folks it's really just hard to grasp the idea that the psychic realm is a reality. They can't hold it in their worldview. And there would be times where I have a sense of knowing about them or something about our group, and I would tell folks, and the response is, oh, that's cool. What about the sports game that's coming on tonight at 8 o'clock? It's just a quick flip because it's not in their mental model or in their framework of reality. And so those are situations where you just have to let it ride out. And oftentimes people come back and they say, well, I should have listened to you. But they come from a perspective of, oh, that was wisdom. And maybe partially it was some wisdom, maybe it was a little bit of common sense, but just maybe, it was something beyond. And then at the higher level, I think it's funny because there is this contradiction where we understand that psychic abilities has been a gift that's been innate in all of humanity for so long. It's recorded throughout histories, oracles, people who speak to the divine, who have wonderful visions because they've climbed the highest of mountains and meditated for so many years. And that is something that's adopted and written down. But yet, in the last 100 years or so, there's just been this heavy campaign of suppression, and now this societal programming has been instilled in us to forget or think that we don't. And because the universe is mental, because we think we don't, we don't. Because if we think we do, it will become. And so it's a bit of a cognitive dissonance in our society that makes psychic phenomenon social stigma. And that is at the highest echelon, and that is the highest or the most difficult challenge for us to overcome at this time. Making sure that people feel inclusive of this change, because the change is coming, and the change is really the remembering of who we are as a people. A vast majority of people do not find their calling. And speaking from a sense of knowing here is, we all come from source. And we are placed in this place in time right now to have an experience of individuality and creativity. And we forget that we're a source so that we can experience it. Because if you know everything, there's no surprises. And in my opinion, I think people don't find their purpose just yet because they're just relishing the moment. And it takes time. And everybody's going to find their way in due time. And if not in this lifetime, some other lifetime. And I get the sense that this third dimension, this reality, is really a filtration system. We either get stuck here because of lack, or we get stuck here because an overly desire for some things that we have now attached to or have created like a persona of ourselves, an identity here, and it keeps us here. And we're here, and we play, and we learn just enough to the point where we start to yearn for more. This third dimension to me is like eating candy when you're hungry. It will get to a point where you realize that the nourishment is not there, and then you will seek. And when you seek and you're ready and your maturity is at that level of understanding, then you will find your purpose. I think the best advice I can give anyone who's looking for true purpose is to just let go. We're taught our entire lives that we must start from here, finish high school, finish college, get a degree, get a job, get married, and then save up money and go find a purpose. And big trips to Bali and big trips to Maldives are all the rage. We go to these retreats and we are constantly searching, and life isn't a straight line from A to B. Because when you get to A to B, you're going to find that, hey, I came back to where I started. I'm just slightly a little bit elevated in understanding now. And we continue this path, and it becomes a spiral of learning, a staircase of ascension or enlightenment. But if we're really seeking true purpose, we just have to let that story unfold for us. And if we just would put one foot in front of the next for today, just for today, and tomorrow, put another foot in front of the next, we'll find that after some time, maybe after a lifetime, that we've actually made it somewhere. And it might be where we started, your purpose. The effect that I have had around the people around me is heartwarming. I think the biggest thing that people tell me is that they feel encouraged and they feel excited and they feel related. That there is some connection to this idea that used to be out in the ether, and now, having seen it in front of their eyes, that they too know that they can do it. That it's just not something that's held to an elite few. It's actually an atrophied, forgotten thing that we all have access to, but that we just have to have trust that we do have it. I think at that level, that's the impact that I've seen. As far as the world, I think that story is yet to be told and unfolded. I think the world would look totally different if the majority of the world understood and knew their purpose. I think we would see a world where empathy is not something that is treated like an afterthought. Empathy sits in the front seat just as intellect would. And because we know how others feel when we treat them the way that we treat them, or because we make the mistakes and everybody understands why we made the mistakes that we are, and because there is unity, it's going to be a world where we freak out less, we worry less, We're so lost in the past sometimes, and we're so future forward thinking sometimes that we really forget the present. And you're going to find a world where people understand what it means to live in the present. My final words for anyone watching this is to take a moment in life. Be happy. Be grateful. Know that you are loved. And have compassion for yourself. Because if not today, maybe tomorrow. And if not tomorrow, maybe the next lifetime.